Mark Rylance, Ruby Barnhill, Steven Spielberg, Rebecca Hall, and Penelope Wilton. Fantastic. Welcome all. I'm going to start with a very easy question for the panel, starting with Mark and working our way down. I just want to know when this book, this amazing book by Roald Dahl, first entered your lives. Mark, I'm going to start with the BFG himself.
I entered it when Steven asked me to read a script on the first or second day of Bridge of Spies. And I didn't realize he wanted me to read it because he wanted me to be in it. I just thought he wanted my opinion, which I was very moved by the script. And then I read the book after that.
So you'd managed to avoid it up until that point?
I wouldn't say avoid. No, I just missed it.
Yeah, that's too bad. And Ruby?
I think, wow, that's I kind of first, all of my friends have been telling me for a really long time, oh, you should read the BFG. If you like Roald Dahl, you should really read the BFG because it's a really good book. And I've been like, yeah, well, okay, maybe I will. And then I decided to audition for the BFG, and my dad was like, you've read the book, haven't you? And I went, no. And he went, well, you need to read the book. And so I read the book in preparing for my first audition, and I think that's when it kind of first came into my life. So.
Okay, and Stephen, what about you?
I read it to my kids. I mean, I picked it up at a bookstore, and I was more familiar with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory than I was with the BFG, but it had a great illustration on the cover. It was a little girl, and she was this big, and there was this big giant with huge ears this big, and I thought this would be a nice book to buy. I heard about it, of course, but and so I read it out loud. So I heard myself reading it about 5 years after it was published to my first child, and I started to understand why it had become so popular.
And even back then, a little kernel in your brain?
No,
maybe
no. I didn't see it as a film back then. I saw it as a way to popularize myself with my own family.
Excellent. And Rebecca?
I read it when I was a child. It was actually the first novel, when you get beyond, like Little Duck Moves, whatever, that I read to myself. So I read it with my inside voice and my, so it was a very sort of private, personal experience. And it was definitely one of those books that I kept reading, like after lights out. I do remember trying to, want to keep finishing the story after it was time to go to bed.
Oh, wow. Okay. And Penelope?
And I read it actually I didn't read it. My daughter read it, and when she was about 9. And then I read it as a book. I read the screenplay, and I read it, and I knew, of course, I knew the BFG because it was around the house. But I've read it recently because it's the centenary of Roald Dahl's life, 100 years, and I've been reading it in a number of schools because there's a lot of programs of the Roald Dahl's work being read in schools. So I've read the BFG in 2 schools.
Amazing. And let's take some questions now from the floor. We have Interfilm here, I believe, are the first up.
Hi, my name is Kessia, and I'm 16, and I'm an Interfilm reporter. I'm excited to share that over 15,000 young people have reviewed Steven Spielberg movies in the UK for Interfilm, with E.T., Jaws, and the Adventures of Tintin emerging as the UK's most reviewed films of all time.
Wow.
I think.
Wow, that's
absolutely.
Thank you. Wow.
Now, before I ask my question, I would just like to, it would be my pleasure just to give you a copy, a sample of all the reviews that.
I would love to see it. I'll break my precedent that I don't read reviews the second they come out. But I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
What? No.
So, you're often the one behind the camera creating a film. But as a film fan, what do you enjoy most about films when you're on the other side in our seats?
Well, what I love is with everything I know about how to make a movie, or at least how to make a movie in the way I make movies, I love that I've been able to get into the habit ever since I was first starting out of suspending my disbelief like every other normal audience member and forgetting everything I know about how a film is made to be able to just let the film that someone else has made wash over me and have some impact on me. And I don't, and a lot of people ask me this question, they say, well, how do you watch movies? Don't you think about where that director's putting the camera and how it's being lit and how they're doing the special effects? And I swear I don't. And even if it's not a very good movie, I don't fall back to trying to figure out how the film was made. I just let the film, like I think a normal audience does, have its way with me.
Thank you very much indeed. And there's a lady here in the front row as well, please. Thank you.
Natalie Anglesey from the Cheshire Magazine. Congratulations, Ruby.
Thank you.
Well done. Can you just tell all of us what it was like for you working with Steven Spielberg and such a talented cast? And what's the best piece of advice Steven gave you?
It was amazing working with everybody on the set and working with the cast as well. It was amazing, and Steven is obviously such a talented director, and so it was such an honour to be able to work with him. And so yeah, I think probably the most valuable piece of advice I kind of got from Steven was probably concentration, because yes,
That helped me too, yeah.
Because not only concentration because of obviously I was very excited most of the time, but also concentration because of you've kind of got to make sure you get into the role before you start shooting, because if you just kind of jump into it straight away, then you don't get a chance to really think about how the character's feeling and you know, things like that. And so I think kind of concentration in just concentration in general, and also concentration about the character.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
She's a
Yes,
great
please,
student.
front row. Thank you.
Question for Stephen.
There's a microphone coming around.
Question for Stephen and for Mark. Mark seems to be your muse, your new muse. I wondered, well, in a nice way, what was it about Mark that made him right for the part? I understand you might be working again on another movie. And Mark, what did you think that you could bring to the role, and what made you want to do it?
It's very hard to, I guess, deconstruct, you know, a intuitive tickle that I get sometimes when I see somebody like Ruby after looking at hundreds of other girls between 8 and 11, and suddenly I get this intuitive tickle when Ruby comes on the screen with her audition, and I look at it and somehow the whole time stops, and I dare to even imagine, I think I might have found her. You know, you can't deconstruct that. You can't say, well, here's why. I mean, certainly Mark, I've known Mark. I certainly met Mark in the late 80s when I was casting Empire of the Sun. I've seen Mark on stage. I'm a huge admirer of him. I know he's like a liquid actor that can fill any shaped vessel and can do practically anything. But the moment that I felt he would be right for BFG quite surprised me. It happened the first day of shooting on Bridge of Spies. And I just had that intuition that there's nobody better in the world that could really pull this off other than Mark Rylance. And I offered him the part that day. Of course, Mark explained to you that he thought I was looking for his opinion on whether the script was any good.
And Mark, what made you think that the role was right for you, or you were right for the role?
I think what you said was, what could I bring to it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think increasingly, I hope that I can bring my joy in acting to it and not get tired or overcritical or too mental about things, but to, like little Ruby showed me every day, just to actually be there, just to turn up is 99% of it, you know. And then you think, what does that mean to be there physically, thoughtfully, hopefully soulfully. But I think more and more what I hope when I take a part is that I'll be able to bring some joy, my joy in making it. And I get that a lot with Steven, because he's so well prepared that a lot happens in the room while we're making it. It's not like, he's not a frightened director who just says, get this now, job done, you know, do it the way it'll be safe and secure. He risks things and encourages one. One doesn't feel frightened to make a mistake in the room, and that's very helpful.
Mm.
Do you think that, yeah?
I would agree entirely with that, because Stephen, he casts you in the part and he trusts you as an actor.
Yeah.
So you feel completely free. So, and if it's wrong, he'll tell you, and if it's right, he encourages it and applauds it. So you feel very free and open, and therefore you do your best work. Anyone who puts strictures on you, your performance gets smaller and more uninteresting, because what he's asking you to do is he's asked you to do it, not someone else. So you have to believe that was why he wanted you to play it.
Oh, sweet, thank you. Luckily, I'm not an actor, so I don't, you know, because I'm not an actor and I don't come from a part where I think I can play it as well or better than the people I've cast. I'm as much in the actors' hands when I'm directing them as they sometimes feel like they're in my hands. So it really is a shared experience, wouldn't you say?
And Rebecca, what was your Steven Spielberg experience like?
We talk about movies.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that is true. Which, let me tell you, is a real treat to have a movie geek conversation with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
It is a pinch yourself kind of moment. No, I had a very special time on this. It was also because so many of Steven's films are so much a part of my generation's childhood, and so the combination of you and Roald Dahl, which was really felt for me like a bit of a return to aspects of my childhood. So there was a kind of magic and wonder and excitement that filled the whole job for me.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, here in the second row. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey